Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 194th episode of our artist playthrough, playing Book of Hours, first time through on YouTube. Now, it's been a little while since the last recording, so we were working on improving the Orchard Keeper, and I think we are on our way. Yes, so we're able to open up the Menacing Phosphorescence. Now, one thing I don't remember about talking about in the previous episodes are, given the fact that Eason has shown up and we don't have another event, we're essentially waiting each month for someone with Hyksos, and this is actually going to become more and more important over time because I'm starting to run out of things that I can do in the game. And I mean, again, I don't necessarily mind doing some less motivated actions in order to just clean up a few of the things that I already know about inside of the game. But the fact of the matter remains that the only way to get languages are through visitors, as far as I can tell, and visitors arrive once every season. So unless I really want to start fast forwarding through seasons and trying to get to that Hyksos, we're limited in terms of the number of books that we can read. And again, I've got a little bit of a plan in terms of how to handle that. We read through the different people in the house. I believe we've been investigating different paintings, so I think we did up to the Tattered Outlaw, and then we'll read As Above and So Below, and then we'll just kind of go through the different rooms for the different pieces of art. We've also been reading the books. I think we made our way up to... So I think we did A Light in the Inkwell. We did Alloy of the White Rose, and Each Flame is Fuel. So I guess Sunrise Awakenings is the next one. But yeah, needless to say, the next few episodes are going to be a lot more about exploration than an exploration of maybe rooms that we've already unlocked, rather than sort of advancing. And this is just simply because there's not as much that we have that we can work with. Until we have the language, there's nothing we can do with these Hyksos books. But of course, we'll still find ways to make things interesting for us. So let's carry on. I'll wait until we've got the Orchard Keeper ready to go. One challenge I'm running into is deciding whether or not there's any value in talking to the Orchard Keeper to try and get more memories. I don't really think I have a lot of things that will require memories. Obviously, there's plenty of things we can try, but I think being able to open up this room and decide what the next item we need is probably a bit more important. So, the pumps have drained enough water to splash through, but everything is spatched and splotted with sickly alien, wondrous mesmeric light. When I retreat, I find the same glow on my boots. Whatever I do, I should not do it hastily. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made the difference for the day. So yeah, I think let's lock the Orchard Keeper in now. So that'll take us a minute, and we can talk with Eason. Now, one thing I'm curious about here, so there is the option for a readable. We do have Fekri's Herbery, which would be interesting to see if we can find out. I'm even trying to remember... Huh. Actually, do we have Fekri's Herbery? Well, our best option is just to go through. So I'm pretty sure there's more than one book that... Alright, so here's one. Not a bad effort, that one. I've learned a little more lore since then, but I hope you still find it useful. May I take a look? Eason will examine the book and return it to you. He won't leave until his other business is concluded. So yeah, let's give that a shot. There's definitely another book that he wrote, though, and I'm trying to remember offhand. I may have to take a look at the titles. Something like The Sea Does Not Regret, which would probably be Salt, which I believe we put over here. Yep. So we'll see. We'll see what comes up out of that. And then we'll start dedicating these elements of the soul to some exploration. I should probably do that now, to be honest. If there's one thing I wish I'd known back then, it's this. Hey, herbs and infusions. Okay, so this gives us an unexpected lesson to work with. Oh my, old memories librarian. Some of them, well, some of those memories are better than others. Can I take a look? Easton will examine the book and return it to you. He won't leave until his other business is concluded. So this, now it would have been nice to have the orchard keeper for generating some memories, but we can still work with this. I should probably be earning some money, so let's use the whist. And for herbs and infusions, that's a fairly low impact one for us, so we can use the gale for sure. It's a heart and nectar, so the earth sign's probably the easiest one for me to work with for the start. But again, we'll see where the day takes us. Does the sweet bones still do that stargazy pie? Perhaps I'll drop in on my way home. Come to think of it, that reminds me of a recipe. You have to hear this. And spices and savors. Alright, so this has turned out well for us in terms of some unexpected memories. So I am going to want to orient my my decisions around making the most with this. So we will definitely satisfy his curiosity now. So let's give him heart or sky. Let's see what the first item I can find on the shelf is. Humors of a gentleman will do the trick. Ooh. It's good to be back. Thank you for seeing me. I can identify my visitors' interests and satisfy them with an appropriate book. Alternatively, if they know a language I'd like to learn, I can offer payment. So, here we go. My visitor has nothing to offer me just now. Humors of a gentleman. Suitable reading. My visitor has questions about the matters of the lower heavens. My collection has answers. So again, we'll see whether or not... I'm reluctant to try and look into the game's files to see whether or not I've just simply run out of events. And this has been going on for a while, so it's possible, but I had the impression that there might have been some more events than what we've been working with. I don't know. We'll see. But for starters, let's get herbs and infusions added in. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Now, spices and savors, we can use the metal for that, or shaft for that matter. I guess we'll use the shaft in this case. Okay, so I need 3 memories. Regrets might actually get me something here. Now, we're not talking to anybody, so we don't really need to worry about overlapping any memories. Just trying to think if there's an easy way for me to... Well, one obvious step would be to get the earth signs back, so we'll read Wrapped in the King for that. So I need one more. I guess we can go for a pattern. We'll read Traveling at Night, Volume 3. And let's use the Arab in that case. So that'll get me set up with spices and savors. We'll want to use at least one element of the soul for to get the earth sign back. But it's nice that we've been able to... these are actually kind of the ones that I would be leveling up anyway, given that I'm raising the floor in terms of what we can work with. So, you know, is it the number one? Like, if I could have picked a lesson, is that the one I would have picked? Maybe not, but it's definitely something consistent with how I have been approaching leveling up so far. The skill is now level 3. Its power aspects have also increased. Okay, Now, before I go too much further, let's take a minute here and think about what I want to prioritize. So let's go to Crowcross Sands. That will get me... There's a specific thing I'm hoping to get from Crowcross Sands. And I actually don't mind the idea of going to the moor as well. In fact, we're probably just going to go to all of this again. So let's try Stone Stories this time. And we will visit... Yeah, actually at this point, let's just... let's visit all of these. So we'll use our health and Hill and Hollow and see what the gulls are up to. So I feel still secure in doing that because I still have 3 elements of the soul left. If I want to use them for exploration, I can. If I want to use them to make money, I should probably check my sanity. But you know, there's plenty of things that I can do. All right, now this is a fun one. So we have got the Deep Light Caves. When the gods from stone were swept away, the Carapace Cross, who had served them, were swept away too. The Seglaz kind, the Wermafota kind, the Gladerflug kind, all those wise and mighty ones are gone into nowhere or hiding or us. Here, in their fire-warmed waters, away from the justice of sunlight, their legacy quietly thrives. Now, one question I've always had, we've got this fellow over here, and I've always wondered if this is if this is referred to in one of the books. I believe it is in the Kukurbit Prisoner Records, but it's not the one that I've normally been reading. We can look for that later. Anyways, we do have the Deep Light Corals, so where the wild few traffic with the tide. So it's nectar, rose, scale, and moon. It will accept elements of the soul and memories, so it's almost kind of like an altar. I guess the altars have a few more inputs, but most importantly, we have one more element for the house, and that is the pulsing darkness. If the isle had a heart, we would hear its pulse. So this is 15 moth and 15 scale. Now I'm actually going to take a quick minute to just read all of this, or figure this all out for my my calculations, because I think with the Skin Shuck mead we shouldn't have that it shouldn't be that difficult. Now obviously it would have been nice if we could go back to summer and use the moth. Our alternative, of course, would be to wait for spring, where we would have a miner to use the scale, but that may not be necessary. Also, just so I can be clear for myself, I believe Mr. Kill is Winter and Sky, Mrs. Kill is Grail and Heart, Reverend Timothy is Lantern and Knock, and Denzil is Forge and Edge. So in terms of hiring, we don't have anybody who would immediately give me any moth. The guaranteed one would be for spring or summer, which would be the barber. And then, of course, there are the special hires, which we've been avoiding for so far. So let's say, so I would have Trist, which would give me 2. Actually, I'm going to take a minute here and... clear it. I also have the option of going down the scale route, but in the case of moth, we know that we have a high-powered... Actually, we have quite a few high-powered moth drinks. So with Trist, we would have, I believe, 2 moth. Then we'd use the shears. So that would be good for 1. That takes us up to 3. Now for a memory... Now that's an interesting question. I don't think I've gone that far into moth memories. So that might be something I want to follow up on at some point, because we've really done the name day riddle, but I'm trying to think if we have any really high intensity memories. So the best I could do for here would be the Newman. So that'll take us up to 8. And at that point we start thinking about food and drink. So in terms of, and of course, given the fact that I would be using, because I'm not restricted to any of the basic hirelings, if I want, I could try and find something that would work for the other hirelings. So for instance, if we had moth in one of these, in any of the wood, which I don't believe we do, the last one would be the edge and scale one. that would give us an argument for using Mr. Kill. I believe the Mothscar scented candle would be one that we could give to Reverend Timothy to get a little bit of an edge in terms of, this is Aglaophotis, yeah. So I know I just did a Mothscar, Honey Scar, Moth Orchid, sorry. So that we could get a little bit of extra moth out of that. I think fabric for Mrs. Kill, and I don't recall if... Oh, right, we said Mr. Kill had the wood, and then Denzel would have materials and metals, but I don't think we have anything that would work there. Anyways, let's focus on what we have immediately in front of us. And so in this case, we've got the Skin Shuck Mead. That's priority number 1 as far as getting some extra moth. So that brings us up to 14, at which point we can really just throw any old moth item to finish the job here, right? We just need the 15 moth, so at that point we would say, let's actually see this through to the end. So lots of honey. I'm thinking honey is going to be where we go with this. But maybe for my curiosity, so I can put effort in here. So I can identify as a marrow. This is a marrow, promising. This is a pumpkin, marvelous. These are onions, wonderful. And these are leeks, excellent. Doesn't hurt to take a quick peek at what some of these give me. I can already sort of tell it's not... I think we actually have leeks down here. But I don't think any of these scream moth to us. So I'm thinking that probably the honey is the answer. I believe honey counts as sustenance, and we do have a surplus, so... Now, we don't have any tryst available, so I think what we're going to do is we will worry about opening that up tomorrow. And so for the remaining 3 elements of the soul, or however much I want, I think at this point we will we'll use them for exploration. I'll wait until the spices and savors are done because we still have a little bit of time, but at this point I think probably keeping today low-key is... it's a decent compromise. We managed to get a room opened, and we won't rest on our laurels, but we'll just take the time to follow up on some of the other things that we did. We wound up with 2 lessons that I wasn't expecting us to get, so we're already ahead in that regard. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. Now, one thing that I might try and do to give myself some activities over the course of the sort of the playthrough while we're waiting, let's say, for an Oriflamme's auction, what I might try and do is dedicate a day towards looking for a specific kind of upgrade. So, for instance, was there a more powerful moth memory that I could have worked with that I just wasn't aware of? Taking the time to see, okay, is there something that I can do with a name day riddle? That seems like a decent way to spend that time that won't involve me paused and not making progress through the seasons, while still giving me something meaningful to try with my elements of the soul. I might change that around. We'll see, we'll see how it all turns out, but that seems like an okay sort of middle ground to hit. How promising. You've satisfied your visitor and earned a reward, but the more they learn, the harder they'll be to satisfy in future. Okay. Let's take a look at what we've got in terms of our memories. So, Sunrise Awakenings, an uncharacteristically poignant meditation by the edge-long Trog of Marianid, who later came to Hush House under a variety of other names, often in search of some sort of fight. If light were not silent, it would be music. If music were visible, it would be light. Each day's light, Trog suggests, is faintly touched by the light of every past day, so, in the light of every present day, we may begin to understand something of days to come. At least this appears to be his conclusion, but he stops in mid-sentence, apparently having lost patience with the act of writing, or possibly being ambushed. And if we take a look, this is one of the things that's really delightful about this game. So what I want to sort of stress is that I have obviously been talking a bit about the dilemma of trying to make sure that I do a video that's sort of worth watching as far as I can. Obviously, you know, people's experience will vary, but, you know, to try and do a video that's worth watching, while also sort of recognizing that this is a very different kind of game than what people might expect, right? And I think in some ways this game streams very well, particularly if, you know, you like hearing people read, for instance. I think this can be a very good game for, you know, just putting it on in the background and enjoying the sound. But if you are someone who sort of has to have something happen all the time, that can be a little bit more challenging. But one of the rewards will be, I got to remember which of their, there we go, Digu and St. Trog, very old iron cudgels, recently and heavily padded. And we've got a few others here, right? Darling Deer and Father Turk and Captain Torg and Mistress Deerday. These are all names that probably we would recognize the further we go. And of course we've got, we made mention of this before, but Julian Cosley. We have a number of these sort of sitting around. So it's, in this case here, even though we are one room away from opening up all of the house, there's actually more for us to see just in terms of making those connections between individuals. And in some cases, this may not be relevant to what you want to achieve as the librarian in your particular playthrough, but that doesn't mean that it, like, the books are interesting to read on their own. And so if you go that one step further, if you like reading the books, the game leaves enough around for you to be able to sort of realize, wait a minute, I've seen that name before. And then you kind of go and double check. And sure enough, oh yeah, now I've learned a little bit more about this individual. Another example of this would be, it's actually rather ambiguous as to, who was it? I think it was Schaller. Peel. So whether it's Dr. Aaron Peel or whether the author referred to as Peel is the same one. And in fact, he does not give you, oh, this is Revelation. Okay, so I'm behind one on, wait a minute. I'm glad I left these aside then. But yeah, anyways, there's quite a bit to pick up. That even, like, the thing that's neat about this is that the rewards of the game are not necessarily just the things that give you items. They can also be the sorts of things where you have that moment of realization to yourself that suddenly gives you a couple of extra steps in terms of understanding, and it's just really enjoyable because all of a sudden you're understanding that maybe something that seemed like a nice little throwaway line is actually kind of important in terms of understanding the history of this place that you're in, or maybe understanding who you may feel sympathy for, or who you maybe feel a certain hesitance about. For instance, in this game, I very, very slowly moved away from a very sort of anti-nowhere kind, gods from nowhere sort of figure to sort of realizing that there may be a role that they play in this world that I'm not 100% certain on yet. That's how they get you. Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries of the cults of Isis and Sibyl, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. Traveling at Night, Volume 3, The Annotated Dream Journals of Christopher Alopoly, sometimes called the only readable occultist, literate, entertaining, bewildering. Alopoly's disquisitions on fire and the unburnt god are interrupted by passages of distractingly erotic poetry addressed to Baldemera. To reach the stag door, I believe that all you really need is to want something enough, but I've never wanted anything that much, except of course Baldemera, And I'm very much afraid that the knot in the story is this. What Maldemero wants is the stag door. But here's something I learned in Persia. Perhaps it'll teach you what you want. Okay, so we'll definitely press the earth sign into service. So the first thing that I want to do here is take care of that missing forge. Well, forge or nectar, but it's a little bit easier for me to wind up with forge, I think. So this was the Savage Hymn. This was Bittersweet Certainties. Neither of those are going to help me out. We've got Impulse. Actually, you know what? The Impulse would help here. So let's read the Kukurbit prisoner records. Okay, now I've got a core and a metal. There's a side of me that would like to investigate one of the paintings. So I'll leave the deer antlers and such for another time. Right now we're just going to focus on paintings. Investigate this object. I really like this piece of music. I'm obviously Subtle Old Soldier is my favorite track, but Stolen Reflections is another nice one. Incidentally, if you didn't know, there is the option to change the music, and if you have the soundtrack, this is how you can find out which track you like the most. Incidentally, for those of you, I know this can sound like a cheap way to get comments, but I don't think I've ever asked this. For those of you that do enjoy participating in the comments, I'm curious if anybody has any particular favorites as far as the soundtrack goes. I've obviously talked about my own favorites, but I don't think I've ever asked my audience. As above, so below, a framed page of illustrated vellum. Up close, the colors dazzle and puzzle. A handwritten slip of paper reads, Abbess Melissenth, 1100. Melissenth's work was sometimes reckoned too radiant for the eye. I should have maybe also paid attention to some of the other... So I could have generated, some forge through through my investigations. But that's fine. We'll still... we'll move ahead with what we've got here. So I don't think there's anything for us to investigate here. Obviously there's furniture, there's lots of things you can learn about the house by not just looking at paintings, but our attention right now is paintings. So, and I'll include the foundation of the sun in this as well. Now in a little bit, I'm probably going to have a bunch of organizing to do. Better now. I don't think it would be a good idea for me to try and turn this into... Well, I could try and turn it into money, but I don't think it would be a good idea for me to try and recycle, so... I'm going to just use this to investigate again. Sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Now we did just have Eason visit, so I can't really get rid of Ava's locks. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. I wonder if I have any more space for serpentinite. Nope, this works. Kukurbit prisoner records, 1927. Accounts by Governor Collar's private secretary of interventions and experiments in the last years of the Kukurbit prison, focusing particularly on prisoners he believed might have Carapace cross lineage. 2 prisoners suspected of oniric crimes are encouraged to access their inner Carapace cross tendencies and develop the attributes of the Seglas kind, sickle-formed pseudocrustacea. Regrettably, they lose the ability to breathe air. One dies, and Collars releases the other into the sea. Collars describes how he successfully induced an unstable carapace larva to develop into a greater form, using insects and nectars techniques in the context of considerable moon aspect to awaken what would rather remain hidden. He hopes that similar techniques might be used to expedite the moral development of prisoners. So I can double check here to see whether or not I've done what I need with the moon aspect and insects. We can actually do that right now. But this is why I'm wondering if this is the second prisoner. So, impulse. It doesn't exactly make sense, but I understand it anyway. Foundation of the sun. Long ago in this country, one did not build a church without first sacrificing a white bull to the sun in rags. Solomon Husher brought this tapestry with him from, well, wherever it was that Solomon came from. The tapestry ripples very slowly, even in the still air. Candle flames bend towards it. So we have a sound. A memory lasts longer than an echo. Of course, when speech came into the world, we could cast echoes into words. And we could cast echoes into words. Things got more complicated. And still more phosphorescent scrapings. I think I'll probably limit my attention to maybe the beach moving forward. Oh dear. Okay, so let's start by leveling up spices and savors. Another fruit plucked from knowledge's tree. And then there's a few things that would be sort of nice to kind of check and play around with, but I think at this point I'm going to just restore the earth sign that I had. So we can read Derashu Quirkum for that. And then we are done for the day. We'll wait till the sun goes down so we can get the old moment. And also it occurred to me that I didn't read. Normally what I do when I finish leveling something up, I read the description. So with herbs and infusions, pluck it, powder it, mix it, warm it, drink it. But not that one. And spices and savors, there is no sacrifice without sustenance. Okay, and that's it for the day. I'll do my usual outro around this time. We'll let the timer go by. I try as much as I know I had that one slip up where I wasn't properly recording, but the plan for tomorrow will be to level up one of my followers to open up the Pulsing Darkness, the last of the rooms in Hush House that we haven't explored yet. I will, after that, we'll definitely spend some time looking at paintings and reading the various books. But what I may do is also sort of divide some of my attention towards, towards finding specific recipes. Again, my hesitation, or I've hesitated so far to kind of consult my spreadsheet from the previous session that I had. It's just kind of fun to try and remember and to build the library around remembering certain recipes and such. But that does mean that for some of the rarer ones, for instance, Forbidden Epics, I know we can make, I just forget exactly what the recipe was. So it's a chance for me to just sort of it's a chance for me to explore and just do something while we're waiting on the last few components that we need to make the progress we want. But we definitely have a few things that we can do before I'm really at the point where I'm trying to figure out what to do with myself for a given day. So. And on that note, let's finish by reading Derashu Quirkum. In English, the title translates roughly as The Account of the Oaks, but this is Nathaniel Darcy Evers' fascinating, if haphazard, survey of the occult properties of every tree he can find, not just oaks. In Persia, Taxus Picata, the yew is called Sorkdar, which is the red tree. There they long understood the grail root. In later times, the great king of Pontus had beehives set in the branches of the oldest of the female trees. The berries of the Pontine yew open the door to death, but the honey of their flowers opens a different door entirely. This was not the great king's Mithridate, but one who is suckled at the great yew fears poison no longer. Perhaps they should. Nathaniel is here distracted, however, by the toxic properties of certain inks. He does mention more usefully that the minor ink of power Ugol can be brewed through the rites of the roots with the assistance of the aspect nectar. All right. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you Wednesday in the next episode. Take care.